All right. Hi, everyone. Hello. Hello. We're so excited to see you today. This is our every other month chapter meeting. My name is Maeve Snyder. I am our chapter president. We've got several of our board members here. If you're a board member, raise your hand. So these are good people to know. Welcome to our meeting today. Here's our agenda. We are going to be starting off with a plant swap, which I'll talk about in a moment. We're going to cover some updates in chapter business. We'll have our featured speaker for this month. We'll hear about the plant of the month, and then we'll just hear about upcoming events. All right, so I know everyone is excited for the plant swap today. I got a few rules for the plant swap. One, we want to stick to native plants. If we see any non-native plants out there, we're gonna quietly put those to the side. And then if you brought plants today and they don't get claimed, they do need to go home with you, just so we're not leaving a mess for coastal campus people to deal with. So we're gonna start off with the plant swap because I know people are excited. We're gonna spend 15 minutes swapping plants on the picnic tables outside. Then we do want to make sure we give enough time to our speaker for this month and all of our chapter business. At the end of the meeting, we are absolutely able to go back out and continue haggling and swapping plants. So let's plan for 15 minutes. So if you did not bring plants to swap today, that is 100% okay. I know several people brought lots of extras, so it could just be a plain take. It doesn't have to be a plant. We want everyone to have native plants to take home with them. If you brought plants and you're looking to trade, find somebody to chat with, make a trade. Any other suggestions or reminders? The only other thing is when you have your collection, you can either take them back to your car, bring them in here with you, or leave them in a little area out there. If they do come in here, just try to keep them as tidy as possible. Wipe down the tables. There's a bathroom nearby with paper towels, but we just want to avoid leaving too much dirt here. Any questions? All right, so let's aim to be back in here in 15 minutes, 6:25.
So I'm not going to take it.
Oh, how long?
Hi.
How are you?
I just drove 3 hours. I delivered groceries from Walmart. They sent me the clothes.
She was there.
Yeah, it's a long time on the road.
It's spring meeting. And she came and spoke. She had to sit down. And she gave her a normal presentation. It was a spring meeting.
Well, it's good to see her back. There was the question if she was gonna make it out of the house.
Yeah. But, we were there. We were just by the office. The power was on. This last Thursday. So we had to go out the Starbucks building. Plus Nancy had slapped and Boston and President together. So we stopped in there and said, hey, I noticed that Robin sitting at this monitor, so I will monitor it.
If she did. Ever since I've known her, she doesn't want to talk to the person who kind of had something. Usually piles of paper.
All right, testing. Testing. Is the echo still here? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Testing. Yes.
I understand they changed some things around inside the pretty centers, you seen it or what they did?
They just moved all those plants.
Yes,
That all they did?
they changed out the plants. And, but I haven't been in there, but Janet mentioned that they were having to keep it closed an extra day because they were, using some of the rain.
They were right.
So it was closed.
Well, you know, looked on the internet the other day. The old site was running warning for some reason.
Testing. Echo still here?
They have, yeah.
And then you think.
What they're doing is they're swapping.
So they just didn't have enough staff.
That's what I think, yeah, they don't have enough staff to run all four of them every day. So some days they run these three, and the next day they run those. And Oaks is the one that's usually left out.
It doesn't speak well to program. You can't get enough volunteers.
Well, it's not a volunteer, it's staff.
Yeah, they're driving.
That's right. It's staff, and they just, I'm not sure why they have.
At one time, you know, they first started off. Volunteers who were allowed to do the vote tours and stuff like that. Then all of a sudden they got in their mind, no, people are paid, so they have the staff, or give us. I guess that was a good excuse for whatever. Larry Henry really wasn't that thrilled with having volunteers in important positions. He would always say, we were staff, we were along with staff, and we were, but he wouldn't want us to do anything.
Yeah.
Important.
Yeah.
When Miss Flower.
Well, it was obvious that facilities guys didn't want to have anything to do.
I wonder if he ever comes back up and looks around. Probably not.
Larry Henry?
And,
I wouldn't know, I've never been.
I never heard of him being there or anything. Yeah.
Testing. All right, we got it.
Yeah, go.
I hope so. Yeah, I don't hear it anymore.
I don't hear it.
Okay.
But he left us out on good terms, right?
He was showing the door.
He was kicked out the door, and shot him. You know, it's, you know, and there's things like everything, there's two sides. I mean, most people didn't like him, but he did have a lot to work with. Yeah. You know, he got us on the map, so to speak, as a year-round destination. You know, the boat tour, nights about animals, all that. Or gardening and stuff, all that. He was just a mouse.
I don't, when you tell me that he said he wanted to get rid of this.
But killed him. I had a long conversation with both of us did with the marketing director at Williamsburg, where he came from in that. And he sort of laid out what Larry would do, what kind of person he is. And damn it, it didn't all come true. And the main thing was, he didn't want people working for him that do more than he did. Even though he's new to Brooklyn, if you do more than he did, they would do it. And he wanted to get rid of the guys. I mean, I don't know what they hire women.
I'm stuff is like,
Because he thought women would be
I'll
more
cut it all back.
for the job than what the guy was. And he could pay him less.
Bob Field, right?
But then. What's the name of the fellow that he brought down? Don't fear it. That other guy that he brought.
Johnson.
Yeah, Phil Erickson.
This guy Johnson. He brought him in. Cold Strand Larry, he worked at the American Museum. Up in
Yeah.
where the hell was that?
Oh.
And they were at the where store was it?
Oh,
Newport. Yeah. And they were supposed to be close friends. And he had a meeting with everybody. Telling us about John Stan's coming. And then John Stan is going to be director of operations. And John Stan is going to be able to run the day-to-day business. So he could go out and do what he did best, and that was fundraising. Well, he never left the property. He was so paranoid. Because John Stan was liked by everybody, and he wasn't. And he was scared that John Stan was going to do something
They just told him.
that he didn't like. You know, something in favor of the employees and that. And so he never left the property. And he used to make, he kept cutting John Stan's down. Moving his office. You know, he was right across from Larry Henry's office at the wall. He stayed here for a long time. Then he moved him out of there to the Tower Box house, so short through. And then and started the ministers. Then he moved him to the low rescue. And that's where he ended up before he, I can't remember, John retired or. I think he retired.
Of course, his wife is the woman that's there.
And his wife Gio was the Donnelly Foundation. She was the one that proceed when I went with Christine. First person to contact about funding was a riverkeeper program.
She just retired a year ago.
Yeah. We had $10,000 a year out of it. But it has to be used in Georgetown. Now they can only do stuff in Georgetown, that's the way it was set, the way it's organized, it's for the benefit of Georgetown County only. And we had groups for the Christine. And I had a crew for that program. We needed funding for. We're over 50% of Georgetown.
Just are looking good.
Oh, good.
And somebody stole one plant out of the one you did.
Oh, no, what they do? Is that a plate?
No, it's that's corner.
Oh, really? Well, they must have needed it for the.
And tomorrow I have to replace one that. We had it.
Really?
Everything doesn't go.
Won't last
Major.
until September.
You had a lot of, you can plan that, because you some things are, you know, January.
You had a lot of candy running that, right? That's a lot, I guess, yeah,
They're all
right,
gone.
they're gone, okay.
And you. It is.
I guess I just planted them too nice.
Yeah, we kept.
The lot down.
That was Bella's perennis.
So you said.
I know.
He knows all these scientific names. Hey, you. Otherwise.
What?
Was it just? I've been doing it for 63 years.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah, wow. I mean, I don't know.
Watch this one while I.
Cause I have.
That's a female.
Are you still getting a lot where you live? Where you live?
And that's fine. They don't get it because the one that would take forward 2 days before this one, then I didn't. It just crossed the my neighbor said, I saw you. They said, I know it was my mom. She's been working at my house. And they're like, your house. Yes. They say initially they kind of say right the area.
Yeah, the only one I've seen.
But now we've got a couple of them around.
Yeah, we just don't hardly get any at all anymore. We used to at one time. We plant milkweed in there.
I got plenty of them. Yeah, I was watching it. Turn black, and black, and turn black, wait for.
Hooked onto it says.
It's my, actually, it's a gazebo. At the top of the gazebo, from the outside, there's those little vertical bars.
Right.
And I saw the caterpillar flying off the gazebo, and then I went, oh, I can't find her. I'm looking all over, and I saw her. He went inside, he said, oh. And you could see the crystal is hanging, so she got herself behind, so she's protected.
Yeah.
So then I said, well, I'm not, the first one I went out, and I sat there, I got one chair out there, called me in the morning, and I'm watching, nothing, Tommy, looking up, saying, I have to wait for it to turn clear. I'm like, wow, I got like.
Yeah, if it's.
And then I went inside for like an hour, get back out, it's fun. This one came out and I was recording. About every 40-45 minutes, I was going back out and then she's still hanging there, so I was doing a weekly video before it started again. From the one that I started, video one, within 3 minutes, we find out. I went back out an hour later with this one other possible layer going.
Sometimes watching that stuff, though, like watching grass.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
It
it's
is.
just, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden it's on.
But I did put out a little on this thing, a hot ball,
Yeah.
on a little, like a plastic lid.
Right.
I've got a pool out there, but I'm all already.
Like,
Golden rod, tall golden rod.
very weak.
Yeah.
So hot ball, and I put that out. But the first 24 hours, they usually for lunch, but they're
Good.
They seem to just seem so lethargic for a while, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
they're like wake up and
And
they're gone.
yeah, I wish. Yeah, the other one, see, here was the other one, this thing was put outside. Yeah, I watched that one. It turned black and I never really saw it go clear and then it's gone. No trees.
We used to get,
Actually, we have that like, right where they.
at the,
Here's.
at the zoo area, we used to, for about 4 or 5 years there, we used to get great horned owl with nests in a corporate tree.
Yeah.
And every year we pledge one baby owl. It was so strange because you could see it from the ground. You would see mom staring at you.
Oh.
Then all of a sudden she
Come
gets,
near that baby, I'll come in to you.
oh, she after a while, she would get higher out of the nest. Then all of a sudden you see the little white face from the pledge you did that. Then it would get bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden it would start branching. You think it was gone already. No, it was just not out of branch. Then all of a sudden one day it would, it'd be gone. Time it got out of the nest until it flew away. It was about a week of it. Very short time. I mean, it was shorter than that, so quick. But it was so funny that it looked just like the baby owl looked just like a big cotton ball. All fluffy and white.
Yeah, my daughter caught a, little kind of baby rabbit. You know, watch video on my face. Pulled up, big pool, fuel. And see, it's a baby rabbit situation. My daughter turned to camera, she said, see, Mom, I'd like to see it. She said, oh, it's outside the garage door, but it's the garage door, close the garage. And there it is. Yeah, we're front door, I'm back door. That's funny. got out and should use a big tub. For the baby,
So is the baby rabbit white or brown?
brown. Plain baby.
Usually they are, they blend in with the brown.
Later that night, I had to call me the one time, so didn't answer that like next morning. I don't even see till I'm. She got, last week, I got on funny word. That was a good thought. But not bad at all. Felt like it had a heartbeat or something, and it would just move a little bit. There was a black one, white one, and a baby one. Baby had all three. Yeah, the baby had all three. The other two just big. So I think maybe the senior.
That's unretrieved, okay, to me, I don't know about the grass.
That should be.
You, we're all live. We get easy. Because I really got to know him. Yes, sure. He's right down.
No, it's like.
Should be good. Good job, good plan. All right, so like I said, at the end of the meeting, if there's other plants you want to look at and take home, absolutely, you are welcome to keep swapping. We're gonna start off with our chapter updates and business. I want to just recap all the things that our chapter accomplished this spring. All of our board members, volunteers did an amazing job putting on really awesome events, including some invasive species removals. Big shout out to Kayla and Sudi for helping to organize these. We had over 20 different volunteers come out to these events where we removed invasive species at our 2 local state parks, Myrtle Beach and Huntington, and at the Waccamaw Tribal Grounds. We've been going back to Myrtle Beach State Park since we started in 2023. So I consider that like our long-term stewardship project. I want to keep going with all of these, but it's just really amazing to see the impact our volunteers have. We also had our plant sale. Some of you may have been there. We had to postpone due to rain. After a spring of absolutely no rain, we ironically had bad weather for the day of our plant sale, but I think we still had a really good turnout. Lots of native plants went home with people to create wonderful habitat. We made the news, and I think everybody had a good time. So thank you to anyone who volunteered. Thank you to anyone that came. Yeah, that was a great event. Our fall plant sale will be TBD on date and location, but keep an eye out And I should have said a huge shout out to Jessica, our plant field chair.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out and for the volunteers. Excellent day.
Our community grant program this spring funded 3 grants totaling over $4,000 that went out into our community to help create native plant gardens and do really cool projects. This spring, our 3 grant recipients included Green Garden, the Friends of Huntington Beach State Park, and STARred, which I forget the acronym, but they are a community group in Atlantic Beach. They recently had a volunteer day replanting sea oats into the dunes. That was also in the news, and some of our chapter volunteers went out to that as well. Shout out to Babs for being a good community partner with that group. We also just want to thank anyone who donated to our demonstration garden fund. So this was to help maintain and create native plant demonstration gardens. We currently have one at the Conway Marina. So you can go visit this if you've never seen it before. It's by the Conway Outpost restaurant. It's got an interpretive sign explaining about native plants. And we had some volunteers go out and do a maintenance day. We try to do this a few times a year. And those donations helped us to purchase a nice new trellis for the passion flower that's growing out there. And we are still seeking new locations. We'd love to create another native plant garden in a public kind of foot traffic area. So if you have any connections or have a spot in mind that you think would be a good spot for a demonstration garden, please reach out to the chapter. We've got some funds set aside to make a project like this happen. We're kind of just looking for the right municipal partner or public space. If you've got a spot, maybe chat with me after the meeting.
I just wanted to make sure everybody knew about the medicinal native plant garden at Rocky Point State Forest. I'm on the watering committee.
Oh, you help to water it?
I go once, 3 times a week, once a month to water it. But they are going to install, if anybody has any resources, some kind of a water collection. Right now, we take our 8-gallon jugs and go down to the river and dip it out and bring it back up.
So maybe you need some creative irrigation solutions. But yeah, Rocky Point Community Forest in Georgetown area is a really cool place if you've never been. And then we want to give a huge thank you to all the volunteers who helped to represent the Native Plant Society at community events. We went to the plant sale, plant swaps, the first ever Fly Trap Festival. So these awesome volunteers staffed our exhibitor table at these events. So we've had a busy spring. Later on, I'll talk about our upcoming events, but we see that note from Sue. We're going to respond. But for now, I'm going to let Hannah introduce our speaker for the month.
Okay, our speaker for the month is going to be Calvin from the North America Sarracenia Conservancy Association. I'm so sorry. I met him at Fly Trap Fest just this past, well, I guess it was 2 weekends ago, and he's going to talk to us about bog gardening. We always get a ton of questions about carnivorous plants and their care, and he's going to talk a little bit about the conservation they do and also how to keep these awesome natives that we have. So I'm going to turn time over to Calvin.
A little bit of a challenge.
You want to hit it under there?
The Zoom thing is covering up the path. Thank you.
Not like
So, my name is Calvin Taltavall. I'm the head of educational outreach and social media coordination at the North American Sarracenia Conservancy. Now, Unlike what our name suggests, we don't just conserve Sarracenia, but our goal is to conserve the entire ecosystem that surrounds them. This includes more specifically Venus flytrap, of which we've saved over 5,500 of them in the past 3 years. We conserve native orchids and sundews as well. I've been growing carnivorous plants for about 15 years now, and I have experience in situ and ex situ conservation. In those rare situations where we need to remove these plants from the wild, it has become my job to become their steward and hope to reintroduce them, hopefully in the future. So this presentation is primarily focused on the cultivation of our endemic carnivorous plants. If you have questions about non-native species, I'm happy to answer, well, non-native carnivores, I'm happy to answer them toward the end of the presentation. We are focusing really on Sarracenia specifically because unlike the other species, they kind of act as the glue that holds everything else together. If you know how to cultivate Sarracenia, you really learn how to cultivate all the other natives that we have. So let's address the elephant in the room first. This is not what a native habitat looks like. I think we all know that by now. I am going to teach you how to cultivate them properly. And the first lesson I need to teach is that Venus flytraps do not belong in a terrarium. They don't grow in the jungles and somewhere in Borneo. They grow right here in the ground in our pine savannas, seepages, and precocins. And that means full sun exposure, a lot of water, and very acidic soil. I'll get into more details later. But first, I think that's very important to address. This is what our native habitats look like. This is a seepage off in the sandhills of North Carolina. However, it's a very common sight throughout. It's a very open, exposed area, low scrublands that are maintained by burns, and of course, Sarracenia and Dionea flytraps dotting the landscape throughout. Here is our lineup. We have 4 endemic species in our area. It is Sarracenia flava, rubra, minor, and subspecies venosa of purpurea. The yellow trumpet pitcher plant is arguably the most common, and it's also our most common hybridizer. You can see it here. This is a kind of an intergrade between Caprea and Ornata, 2 different varieties. They are growing in waterlogged swamps to pine savannas, so they can actually grow totally submerged or in very dry areas. They're very adaptable, and they hybridize frequently. Sarracenia rubra, which is the second photo you can see, is known as the sweet pitcher plant. They are a drier growing endemic, closer to sandier areas, and they grow alongside Sarracenia minor, which is our most drought tolerant species. They produce the longest and deepest roots of the genus, and throughout their native range, they're the most drought tolerant. We are currently in the northernmost extent of their range. They only go into Brunswick County, North Carolina, within which they are critically endangered. There's only 1 site left in the entire state. Finally, we have Sarracenia purpurea subspecies venosa. There is a sandhills variety of venosa as well. However, the one we have is venosa. It is separated into a complex of 4 different species and subspecies from Florida all the way up into Canada. So it's important when choosing an endemic species to choose venosa, because that's the one we have here, and that's the one that will respond best to our conditions. For instance, purpurea is the Canadian form, and it is very unhappy when it gets exposed to our North Carolina summers. Now, I do want to get into some honorable mentions and some honorable don't grow these. We do have in the westernmost part of our state, Sarracenia jonesii, the mountain sweet pitcher plant, and Sarracenia venosa subspecies montana, which is both cool growing species. Unlike our natives, they are seepage dwellers for the most part, and that means that they want cool roots 24/7. They might be some of the most beautiful and enigmatic species in the genus, especially around here. However, I wouldn't recommend growing them because they do not like our hot conditions. You can grow some absolutely spectacular forms that grow right here. Now let's get into Drasseriaceae. You'll see why I cheated in a moment. The first member of Drasseriaceae family is Dionea, the Venus flytrap. And funnily enough, they are distant cousins to our sundews. They're endemic from here in South Carolina and Horry County up through the 80-mile radius around the Cape Fear River Basin into Fayetteville. They are slightly drier growing, and they're most commonly found on Carolina Bay rims and pine savannas, which is very surprising. If you see them in situ, especially right now during the drought, you'll see dry soil surrounding them. It's really wet around the roots, but you don't see that. A lot of people think they grow waterlogged like Sarracenia flava. Secondarily, we have Drosera capillaris. This is a wetter growing sundew species. You can see in the photo, it's actually growing completely waterlogged. This is a very common sight for the species. It is the second best water growing endemic, Drosera intermedia being the first. Intermedia has adapted to grow stems throughout their range in waterlogged areas that can get up to 10 inches tall to really succeed those floodplains. Finally, we have our smallest endemic sundew, Drosera brevifolia. Brevifolia is very special because it persists where Venus flytraps do not. And getting to conservation for a moment. When I'm going out and I'm surveying for land that is optimal for relocation, what I look for are endemics that point to the fact that Dionea was there. And one of my keystone species is Drosera brevifolia because it's very fecund, very excessive seeding of the soil leads to it surviving in areas that have been bulldozed, burned, sprayed, because it'll pop right back up where Dionea doesn't get a chance to because it's a much slower growing species. So it's a very important one, even if it's very diminutive. So what do endemic carnivores need from us? They need highlight, inert soil, constant water, fertilizer, and most importantly, I put this in bold, a dormancy period. What dormancy means is that during the winter, the plant stops growing. It produces what we call phyllodia, which you can actually see here, which are non-carnivorous leaves. They are only here for photosynthesis. This dormancy period is absolutely key to maintaining equilibrium in the plant system. They have adapted to our winters. They need our winters to survive. There's an exception, but we'll get into that later. So let's get into specifics. Light. Adults, Sarracenia, Dionea, and of course Drosera, all want bright, direct sunlight. I would say a minimum of 6 hours a day. And seedlings under 2 years want that 6+ hours of sunlight, or they can take artificial LEDs. I start my seedlings for about 2 years, my Sarracenia seedlings that is, in pots in my greenhouse so that they can grow up longer because you can skip the dormancy the first 2 years. Keep in mind that Sarracenia seedlings, again, don't require dormancy, but dormancy in adults is mandatory. With Droseraceae, Venus flytraps, and sundews require dormancy within that first year. They're very quick growing. They reach maturity within 6 months, as in some cases. And I would strongly recommend you do not attempt to grow Venus flytraps inside. This is what I like to say about Venus flytraps. They are the most rewarding and enjoyable and entertaining plant to grow until you put them inside. They become the most annoying, challenging, and very intensive care plant that you will ever be. I have grown them indoors myself. It is possible, but they require round-the-clock care. They require a lot of sunlight, and they require a lot of fertilizer. And for that reason, I cannot recommend if you're a beginner to even attempt to grow them inside. We grow right in their native range, so you should really take advantage of that opportunity. So I'm going to give you 2 options for soil. This is the first one. Option A is peat sand perlite. I keep it simple. 3, 2, 1. 3 parts perlite, 3 parts peat, 2 parts sand, 1 part perlite. This mix is very beneficial because it wets easily and you don't have to really work to mix it in. It mimics the natural soil of the environment and it's very water draining, but it's still very water retentive. This does very well in trench systems where you have a constant water source going. The drawbacks though, it's costly because you have to buy very specific sand. It's called pool filter sand or quartz sand. And it is very time consuming to mix together every single time you need to do it. I own maybe 2,000 Sarracenia and flytraps myself. And I will say from firsthand experience, mixing soil can get very annoying very quickly. So I like to say this is a great option, but it isn't an option that scales. Here's option B. Straight peat, 100% peat, nothing else. Very simple, very easy to get. You can buy it by the 3 cubic foot bale. It's very easily accessible and it's very highly water retentive. I know people who have used peat mixes that have lasted over 10 years in carnivorous plant conditions because there's so little bacterial activity going on. The only drawback, in my opinion, aside from heat retention, is the fact that it does not want to get wet. I mean, if you've ever tried, you have to mix it up. You have to spend 5-10 minutes forcing the water in to finally get it wet enough to work with. You can't put it in dry because it is so hydrophobic that it will literally fly out of the pot when you try to water it. So take that as you will. Pots. Surprisingly, pots are actually one of the most important decisions you have to make when growing carnivorous plants outside. You don't want to put them in a 3.5-inch pot like this, and I'll explain why I do it myself because I like to cheat. These pots are your thermal mass for the plant. If it freezes, if it snows, if anything happens, you want to overprotect the rhizome or the bulb or the hibernaculum in the case of some sundews, and you want to protect it from those cold conditions. There's no one proper size, but if you want to lean on the safe side, start with a nursery gallon pot and move up from there. The bigger, the better. You can do things like miniature koi ponds, you can repurpose bathtubs, you can do a lot of different things, but you really do want to start with a large enough pot to protect it, especially if you only have a limited number of plants. Now, why do I use 3-inch pots? Because I'm kind of defeating my own message right here. The reason why I do is because my setup is a trench. It's 16 feet by 3 feet. I line all of my pots in close quarters so that they all create basically a thermal mat to insulate one another. So I'm able to circumvent the need for a larger pot because I have scale on my side. But as a standalone, I wouldn't recommend it. Water. Rule number 1 when growing carnivorous plants, especially if you want to cheat like I do, get a TDS meter. TDS stands for Total Dissolved Solids. It costs $4 on eBay. This meter is going to tell you your fertilizer ratios. It's going to tell you how much water, what water you can use. And it's very informative to have, especially when you have larger setups. They're $5, well worth the investment. If you can, use rainwater and distilled water first. However, it is acceptable to use tap water if your TDS is below 100 parts per million. In my case, my water is around 68, and it's perfectly fine for cultivating Sarracenia. But above that, you have this accumulation of salts within the peat, especially chlorine and fluoride, and that can be harmful to the plant long term. Now, another important feature is water rain. I bottom water all of my plants. Mind you, they do get rainwater. However, for those times in between the rains, especially during drought season, everybody gets sat in trenches where they get a constant flow of water underneath the pots. Quartz sand and peat are both wicking, meaning that they pull water in from the bottom. So as long as you have a constant water source underneath them, say 1/2 inch to about 2 inches of water, you're golden. You do not want to inundate the pots, especially around the rhizome. A little bit of plant anatomy for you. Pull this one. You look right here, see the white? Oh, I gotta expose it a little bit more. You see the white now? That is what we call a rhizome. It's almost like a bulb on a tulip. That rhizome does not want to be surrounded in water. The reason being, it has a bunch of little grooves in between where the leaves form. Those allow bacteria, melee bugs, God knows what, to accumulate. And when they are waterlogged, they become a fungal nightmare. Especially with us, when we have prolonged temperatures above 70 degrees, being waterlogged will cause rot to occur significantly more frequently than if we were to keep the water level low. Remember, we need the roots wet, not the rhizome wet. Oh, and I also, again, for fungal reasons, allow my tray to dry out for 1 to 2 days between waterings. And that is because systemic fungi can survive in the water. If that water dries out, you're more likely to not incur it. Fertilizers. Despite what everybody insists, at least at the beginner level, fertilizer is absolutely essential to growing carnivorous plants. Now, you don't fertilize like you would normally fertilize a plant, because most of y'all know how to fertilize, right? Hands? I imagine. You grab your fertilizer, put it in your gallon jug, however you want to water it. You water it in soil, you walk away, you're done. Carnivorous plants want to be watered on the surface of the leaves because that's how they get their nutrients. You can put Osmocote in the soil in very small amounts and they will get some nutrients from it. However, if you want the best results, like this with this one, you want to put fertilizer straight down the pitcher. And the best way to do this is with a sprayer. Now, these are the most common fertilizers I would recommend. You can see I put a QR code up. I'm not sponsored at all, but I do use this fertilizer myself. Maxi 16-16-16 is the gold standard and is basically what everybody and their mother will recommend to you when you ask a question on Facebook. It's relatively cheap. It's very accessible on Amazon, that is. And it is relatively harmless if you were to accidentally drench the soil. So I even use it on my seedlings as water because seedlings absorb fertilizer more readily than adult plants. And you can kind of cheat there. You really want to get into the advanced stuff. Epsoma Organic Bloom Booster is the only one I would recommend as a soil drench because it has beneficial bacteria. Now, as all of y'all know, I assume, mycorrhizal fungi and bacteria are key to the way these plants take up nitrogen. And there is a symbiotic relationship between the root system of plants and these fungi. So introducing them is beneficial. It helps fend away harmful pathogens, and it also strengthens the plant and the ecosystem around the soil. Because unlike what a lot of gardeners have insisted for years and years and years, it's not about the plant itself. It's about everything it interacts with. So to create that micro ecosystem is absolutely essential. And it's very cheap, things like Epsoma. Better Grow Orchid Plus is if you're on a budget and you don't want to buy online, you can go to a big box store and buy it. And you can use it at full strength, again, for pitcher feedings and what we call foliar feeding, which is spraying down the plants and the surface of the traps. Now, what do I use? I use stealing from the bodybuilding community, I use a stack. I use a bunch of different things all in tandem. I use 16 grams per gallon of Snappy's Vitality, which is the specialty fertilizer I was mentioning earlier. I use a capful of full-strength Epsoma Organic as well, because of those beneficial bacteria. And finally, I use silica. Silica is very unusual because it strengthens the cell walls of the plant, which reduces transpiration, which is a lot of nerd stuff. What that means is that the plant loses water slower. And also it increases rigidity, especially in pitcher plants. They need that rigidity to survive. So introducing silica into their diet basically can give you stronger, better pitchers. It's well worth it. The only drawback is that I have to pH balance my mix because of that silica. Because silica is basic, I have to drop the pH down to 5.5 because that's the optimal range to absorb all of these nutrients. It's not perfect for one specific one, but it's perfect for general. It's where the most absorption rates overlap. Yes?
Just a question. Ground up your reports, that many of the same?
I don't know because I use quartz in a lot of, quartz sand in a lot of my soil, and I've known it to be inert. So I don't know if there's a mechanism for it to dissolve into the water. And as you can see, my stack gets a little bit high in the TDS range. Usually you want to be below 600 parts per million, but this just goes to show you can be at 6,000 and totally be fine. It's just where you fertilize. If you put this in the soil, you're going to burn the plant to death. But if you put it inside the pitcher, you're totally fine. Anybody have questions?
How are you bringing your pH back down?
I use pH down, the product. And I have a pH meter myself, so I make sure that I take a sample and I balance it out.
How often are you fertilizing?
Every week or every other week.
How much do you put in an individual pitcher?
It's not to fill it to the brim because the digestive surface is limited. You really want to be about at the halfway point at most.
So most of the projects I see around here are growing pretty much exclusively in sand and long pine stuff. So is there a reason that it wouldn't just plain sand, just sand every line wouldn't work as a substrate?
Sand that you can find does work because it's not just sand, it's a little bit of silt and loam and a little bit of clay. So I'm not condoning collecting from the wild, but if say you have a private property where you have this, it is viable.
What's gonna happen when they're all dried out from the drought?
Nothing good. So we got two routes forward with the drought. Route one is we get rain just in time. These rhizomes do store water. And in theory, I've seen these drought tolerant plants persist through the extended periods. However, the other option is if we're lucky, and there's a big if, there's enough seed remaining in the seed bank of the soil that these plants will pop back up if given enough time. But that's a big if. It's not a guarantee.
So the wild ones will come back.
The wild ones should. There are a lot of areas where droughts have completely wiped out ecosystems, especially with these. They're especially vulnerable. Any other questions?
Can you talk more about the conservation work of the Conservancy?
Yeah, so I work with, again, North American Sarracenia Conservancy. We have done everything from Sarracenia rescues. We go in right before the bulldozers and move plants from the wild under permit. But our main focus lately has been more proactive conservation. And that means specifically in Boiling Spring Lakes, we have been going through and marking down areas where Venus flytrap populations exist. And then we work in tandem with the city to systematically remove them and replant them into areas where they are going to be protected in perpetuity. So we come in when a permit gets pulled, when a bulldozer shows up, whatever. And we come in before that happens and we move these plants. Because a lot of them, things that's so special about Boiling Spring Lakes is that we screwed up the ecosystem in the past when we built ditches throughout the town. And what happened is we dropped the water table and all the plants that existed in these beautiful Carolina bays, pocosins and everything dried out and died. And their seeds washed into the ditches. And so what persists are these micro ecosystems that only line the roadways. And that is also where they are most vulnerable. It also happens to be where we have the most access. So we can go in these areas that are under city ordinance, or city control, and remove these plants without the need to interact with the landowners who may be more or less interested in supporting conservation.
That there are ditches that run through like private properties area, and but I would be hesitant to like put a trench in there just because it is getting runoff. So are these relatively consistent?
I would say they're very vulnerable. They're not as sensitive as some dudes who will die off in a year. However, given prolonged exposure, they will slowly die out. My trenches that I built myself are lined with pond liners so they don't get exposure from the runoff that's in my area.
So when you're repotting, they have obviously their roots that go down the horizon. How, when you're out in the wild collecting them, how far are you digging to preserve those root structures?
The roots are less important than you would think. We're not taking all the roots. Like,
Yeah.
for instance, Venus flytraps, we take what we call a plug, which is about 4 inches deep, that preserves the taproot and the bulk of the roots, and it allows them to reform. We try to get enough root to force the plant to interact with the new water table or introduction site, but nothing deep.
How do you learn about new land developments and disturbances?
We've learned through the city.
They alert you directly?
They alert us directly.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the goal of our long-term, it's our long-term thesis, so to speak. We are using this city and its willingness to interact with us to create a blueprint to replicate it across the state. So this is the pilot program, so to speak.
Sorry, what's the city name again?
Boiling Spring Lakes. And actually, just to count something that we're doing, we will be holding the first annual Flytrap Festival on the 30th of May. It's at the community center. There will be tours through our relocation sites. You can see the Venus flytraps that we're reintroducing. And our proceeds are going to benefit the production of a boardwalk because we're trying to turn the entire area into a preserve.
This might be like waiting specific for not next, but if you get contacted, it'll be a place that's going to be developed privately owned land.
No.
Oh.
So BSL is weird in that all of these plants, for the most part, exist on city easement. So it's also where the ditches come and destroy them. But because it's on city easement, we can go in without the landowner's permission and remove these plants. In cases where it is on the landowner's land, it has to be site to site, and we have to get an individual permit from the state and also permission from the landowner too. So that makes it a little bit more complicated.
So when the plant point runs, I thought I saw on one of your slides that you had a cover.
I do not. These guys get full exposure. Last year they received 10 inches of snow, and they were totally none the wear, no worse for wear.
So would that matter what size pot that they're?
Yes. So that's why I recommend the minimum for the nursery gallon, because that's enough thermal mass to protect it against a large snowstorm. If you get, say, an ice storm, you might want to cover it, but for the most part, our North and South Carolina winters, they're mild enough that you don't need to cover. Anything else?
How can people stay in touch with the Conservancy or support you guys?
Easiest way is through Facebook. The North American Citizen Conservancy has a page, and I'm the one who responds to all those messages. So if you have any more questions, reach out. My name is Calvin Taltavall. I also have a Facebook page that I'm happy to share around. And finally, we are in the midst of rebuilding our website, but we do have membership there if you want to support us directly. We also have annual benefit auctions twice a year, once in spring, once in fall, and all proceeds go to benefit our conservation efforts.
One question.
Yeah.
One of the sundews that you had on looked, the one that you used as an indicator that fly traps in the area. They looked a what size? They looked like
Less than an inch.
so they are.
They are what we call the dwarf sundew. And weirdly enough, the dwarf sundew is the only sundew that produces a taproot. Because they are fly trap adjacent, which means they grow in drier conditions. They're actually better at surviving through droughts because they have that large taproot that allows them to access water significantly deeper. Whereas intermediate will die out and capillaries will dry out and rely upon the seed layer to repopulate itself.
It's like.
I'm an inch away from the plant.
So back to, when you were rescuing the fly trap, if you got like a flood.
Yes.
We've done a rescue here, and I was, in my mind, I was thinking dig as much of the native soil where it's growing. And so it has the mycorrhizas, you know, like the whole initiative going on in that soil, and it's good to have that, but it's bigger than a plug, so is that, I think that's a bad way to do it, or do we need to try to be smaller?
It's not bad, it's not wrong, but
Yeah.
it doesn't work at scale. So a single rescue for us is between 250 and 500 fly traps.
Yeah, smaller.
Yeah. So if you have smaller scale,
That's
absolutely.
okay.
All right, I think that's it.
Maybe. I think I could have handled it, but.
Where's the nugget? This is perfect with the screen sharing.
It should, yeah, I see everything. Yeah, you're all good.
Yeah. Well, that's a really hard act to follow. Yeah, so I decided that plant of the month this month is Pycnanthema muticum. One of our mountain mints. I have not done a mountain mint before. I went through and double checked and I couldn't believe it because these are just fantastic. Pycnanthema muticum is commonly known as clustered mountain mint or blunt mountain mint or short tooth mountain mint or just plain old mountain mint. It is in the mint family, the Lamiaceae. So it does have those square stems and it does spread by rhizomes underground. Typically, these get about 3 to 4 feet tall. How far they spread? As far as they want. I kept finding pictures of them super clumpy like this. They do not do this in my yard. They tend to like, there's some over here and there's some over here, and they're not like super dense and thick like this, which is actually kind of a nice thing because that means other stuff can come up in between them. Full sun to part shade, medium well-drained soils, and they're super, super easy to propagate because, like I said, they spread by rhizomes, so you can just dig up new pieces. If they spread where you don't want them, like into the lawn, mow them down. Pycnanthemum, it actually means clustered flower, hence clustered mountain mint. And muticum means blunt, hence blunt mountain mint. And the blunt refers to, there's these bracts around the flowers and they're just kind of blunted off rather than super pointy. They are not super common, as you can see, except for apparently in like Louisiana. But they are fairly widespread, where they go from New Jersey over to Missouri, down to the Florida Panhandle, and down into East Texas. These are the flowers. They're not super big, not super showy, but as we'll see, big and showy is not necessary to support a lot of biodiversity. They have this very quintessential mint flower. If you get right in there and look at them, where they have 3 lobes on the bottom and 2 lobes on the top. And this picture is making a liar out of me, where those bracts do look pretty pointy, don't they? The leaves, this is where the mint comes in. If you break these leaves open, they smell delicious. I love to just walk around in my yard with one up my nose. And you can also make a really, really delicious tea out of them. I have made it myself. Instead of mowing the ones that come up in the lawn, I just trim them and then I put them in boiling water and make tea out of them. One of the garden stops for the garden tour this weekend, assuming the rain does not make us do things like postpone, I will have mountain mint tea available for my visitors. So you will get to try some. Opposite leaves, as you can see there, and then they have this very fine serrated edge of the leaf. This is the seed head, and then the seeds, they're super tiny. They do not need any kind of pre-treatment to germinate. They don't need to be cold moist stratified or scarified or anything like that, but they do need to be surface sown. So they need light. So you don't want to cover them up with soil. You literally just put them on top of the germinating mix and water them and off you go. Oh no. There's supposed to be a video here. There's a video of the ones in my yard, and there's things buzzing and flying everywhere. But they attract a really wide diversity of various types of pollinators. I always like to say this is the one that attracts the weirdos. Like, it's not just like your fuzzy bees and your butterflies. It's like your oddball things that are bees that kind of look like wasps, and also wasps, and just all sorts of odd looking insects. Obviously, there's the common buckeye, which feeds on them, and then they are a larval host for the emerald wavy lined caterpillar. And these are really cool because they actually cut pieces of leaves and petals and stick them to their bodies, caterpillars do, to act as camouflage against predation. So I just thought that was really neat. That wavy emerald, wavy line?
I think it's called an emerald, a wavy line emerald.
Then, thank you. I just couldn't remember where the word emerald went in the name. Maybe this word. No?
Reenact it.
Oh, well, oh, well. That is, that's plant of the month. Nope.
Will add horizon really shallow, don't just lay at the surface, so it's easy to pick it. Don't want it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say on the spectrum of mints, this one is pretty easy to control and keep from where you want it. I just want it everywhere. I want all the mountain mints everywhere. I have like 5 different species now, so I'm just collecting them all.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you having any trouble with, moths, and predation on them at all?
Moths and predation, like.
Yeah, like on all my mints, I know I've talked a few times to the group about it. I've got these, I'm not sure what they are. They're small white moths and they cover all anything in the mint family and, cause the leaves to have all these white dots and then, die.
I have not seen that at my house, but I'm knock on.
Well, I hope they don't fly over to your place.
Yeah, I will send them my way. You live pretty close to me. So.
In the top right, press present.
Pass it back on to me.
All right, thanks, Judy. Right, so I'm gonna just share some events coming up. One of which Tierney mentioned is this Sunday, we're having a native plant home garden tour. The weather forecast is looking a little iffy, but it's too soon to make a decision to postpone right now. If it's thunderstorms, I think we will postpone. We're looking at potentially just moving it back a week to the 31st, but I have to check with all the hosts. That being said, I'm really excited for this. It's the first time we've tried an event like this. So it's like a self-driving tour where we visit 3 different home gardens of native plants around the Conway area. Last I checked, we had 19 out of 24 spots filled. So there's a few more spaces if you would like to register and squeeze in. Yeah, so to register, you would go to the SCNPS website, the Native Plant Society website. There's a calendar. You would just find the day, click that link and register there. It's a free event. I think we suggested a donation to support the chapter, but we want it to be open to everyone. It's going to start and end at the Conway Marina at that demonstration garden I mentioned. If we can do it regardless, whenever we do it, we'll suggest going to lunch at the Conway Outpost afterwards. That'd be kind of fun. Let's see, there's public parking there. We encourage carpooling. That'll make it easier to park at each of the home gardens that we're touring, but totally up to you.
Can you speak louder?
Yes. Any questions for the tour? I will send an email to participants Friday or maybe early Saturday morning about a decision to postpone if the weather is looking bad.
If you can't start at 9, and say you could start at 10:30, can you still participate?
It might be tricky because we're gonna be on the road. If that's your case, maybe email me directly and I can send you my itinerary and you could just plan to meet us. Like you could just skip the first stop and meet us at a later stop. That should be possible actually. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so just reach out. Good question.
I missed the mountain and see them.
I know. All right, and then we have a field trip coming up. This field trip is to the Yawkey Wildlife Center down in Georgetown. This is a DNR property. This is a really fun one. This photo is of Carolina hedge nettle, Bacchus carolinea. It's a very rare plant. It only grows in, I think, 2 populations, one in Andrews and then one at the Santee River. Yeah, like right across the river. So it's a really amazing preserve if you've never been there. I will give a word of caution. It is the second most mosquito-y place I've ever been in my entire
Yeah,
life.
so we wanted to catch the hedge nettle in bloom and hopefully do the tour before it got too blisteringly hot. But this is like, they don't do tours during the summer for a reason. One, the heat, 2, the bugs. If we did it earlier, we would hit horseflies. And this time frame is mosquitoes, and they will ignore bug spray. Please wear layers of clothing as a barrier, because my goodness gracious, they're the mosquitoes. But it should be fun. Yeah, come.
This is a really cool property. If you've never been, botanically it's interesting. It's a bird watching paradise. So many alligators. Very historic too, if that's your thing. So you can register for this field trip on the website, just like the driving tour. Just go to the calendar page and sign up there. All right, our next chapter meeting will be back in here on Thursday, July 16th. So we hope to see you then.
Our speaker will be Lori from the North Carolina Heritage Program, speaking about pollinator biology.
So I love it. You
Yeah.
may remember Lori. She spoke to us when she was working at the Xerxes Society about her PhD dissertation on Venus flytrap pollination. So she'll be back. And we'd like to just turn it over to all of you if you have any updates or anything you'd like to share for the group.
I'm hoping I still have some garden left alive on next Sunday.
I said the same thing.
Yeah. My water bill doubled last month and I'm only watering my garden beds, not the lawns.
I mean, for the native plant home garden tour, we definitely stressed to everyone, like, your garden doesn't have to be perfect. We're all learning from the lessons that and the mistakes we've made along the way. I've certainly killed some native plants in the name of native plant gardening. So speaking of which, if you are interested in maybe hosting a home garden tour in the future, there is a survey, like an online survey you can fill out to let us know that you're interested. Basically, if we do this in the future, I'd be looking for hopefully like 2 or 3 homes in relatively close driving distance from each other. And so we need more people to express interest. I can't guarantee that we will plan one that would come to your house, but we need to know where people are so that I can link together a route. So let me know if you're interested in that. Any other updates for the group?
Not an update, but for the garden tour, it also would be fun. I don't know if there are places around, I mean, maybe not home gardens, but even native gardens anywhere.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely like, we could link together rain gardens or pollinator gardens in public spaces. We're kind of doing that with this tour with the Common Marina Garden. So that would help us to connect the dots to make a tour. Yeah, for sure.
I do have pictures of the Rock Point Garden if anybody wants to see. It's on Choppy Road, about 6.5 miles from the blinking light on 701. If anybody gets out there, stop and see it. Someday we'll have science with explanation and a water collection system.
Love it. Anything else? All right, well, go grow your roots. Like I said, you can keep plant swapping. We can hang out in here to chat. And I just want to thank you all again for coming to this month's meeting.
Other